Hello and welcome to India's World. Today we are going to discuss some big changes taking place within Pakistani society. Our notions of Pakistan in India are shaped by the prevalent prejudices. They are not shaped by facts, they are certainly not shaped by visiting the neighbouring country, which itself is a daunting task given the restrictive visa regime between the two countries. They are shaped by the media, they are shaped by the strategic affairs experts who debate India-Pakistan relations in a jingoistic manner, and they are also shaped by the antagonism that the two establishments often promote. In effect then, we are not going to discuss India-Pakistan relations at all because they force people to retreat into nationalist positions. What we are going to do instead is to discuss what is happening within Pakistan today. And we are very lucky to have three guests from Pakistan. We have with us Professor Abdul Hamid Nayyar, a physicist by training. He taught at the Quaid-e-Azam University and is currently a senior research fellow at the SPDI Sustainable Development Policy Institute in Islamabad. We have Ms. Uzma Noorani. She is a women's activist. She founded the Women's Action Forum in Pakistan, which has been fighting for women's rights since the 80s. And you also founded a group called People's Resistance, a civil society group which fought for independent judiciary when the judiciary was under threat. And we have with us a very young scholar, Professor Yaqoob Bangash. He heads the history department at the prestigious Foreman Christian College in Lahore, a DPhil from Oxford. He is a well-known columnist in Pakistan. I welcome all of you to this discussion. Professor Nayyar, let me begin with you. How does one understand the Pakistani identity today from being Fortress Islam in South Asia and equating being Pakistani with anti-Indian? Do you think the post-partition generation, which doesn't have the baggage of partition with it, is beginning to redefine its identity as a Pakistani citizen?
Well, I think that thing will continue to happen. Defining and redefining and so on, and expressions of regional identities, expressions of linguistic identities and so on will continue to happen. In fact, there are greater expressions of regional and linguistic identities now than there were earlier. And I think they, more than the actual Pakistani identity. But then the state itself has a particular agenda of itself in trying to define that identity. And it makes sure that it happens through the media, through education and through other discourses. I don't think this is any special moment in the redefinition of any of those identities. It is just like, any other time when things, different kinds of things happen in different parts of Pakistan and in different ways.
Ms. Noorani, Professor Nayyar says this is not a special moment in Pakistani history. But isn't it really a special moment or a moment in the making? For example, where was the need to rename Northwest Frontier Province Khyber Pakhtunkhwa? When was there a demand earlier for creating a Saraiki province of Saraiki-speaking people from southern Punjab? When was there a demand for a Muhajir Suba or whatever else you might want to call it by dividing Sindh? When was it that the PPP wanted to be called a Sindhi party or the PML Nawaz Sharif wanting to be called a Punjabi party? So the assertion of ethnicity that we are seeing in recent times hasn't been there earlier, has it been?
I agree that it has grown over the years, and I think this is because of the reason that we have not had long periods of democracy, sustainable democracy in Pakistan, where when institutions are not able to be built on democratic lines, then you are sort of tend to divide yourself, and then the issue of ethnicity and all these things crop up. And as far as the Muhajirs are concerned, we were very much like people. I'm one of those who are born of immigrant parents and who came and settled down in Sindh. And right from the start, I think the thing was that they were in positions of power at that time because of being the more educated class. And over the years, they sort of tried to take over the very province that welcomed them, and instead of assimilating with them, they were getting further away. And it has not just happened because of any other reason, because even the state played a very crucial role in this. And Zia-ul-Haq, when he came into power, his policy of divide and rule inculcated this ethnicity particularly in Karachi, where the Muhajir community, they started calling themselves Muhajir.
Yeah, but you seem to suggest that assertion of ethnic identities is necessarily undesirable. Is it undesirable? Why can't it be a basis of political formation?
No, ethnicity is undesirable. National identity, yes, because after all, Pakistan has 4 provinces, and because we have had one province which has been ruling the 3 smaller provinces, so this identity crisis has emerged, and so we have this Sindhi identity and the Pakhtun identity, which is not bad, but it should not take the direction that it has, which has divided the nation, and where what has happened over the years, where we had national level political parties, like the People's Party was the only party which had a national identity, and because of not being able to, the leadership was taken away from them, and I think that it has been a sustained effort to break down the political parties and bring them down and weaken them by bringing them down just to the closest ethnic and national identities.
Yaqoob, you've been arguing that the notion of a minority continued to permeate Pakistani psyche even after the formation of a Islamic majority country of Pakistan, and that this continues till today. Is that changing now, or do you see any prospect of that changing?
Well, there is a notion that it is a country under siege, and I think the increase in the levels of terrorism, increase in the levels of external pressures on Pakistan does reinforce that. So it might not be the case any longer that the reference point is always India and Indian Muslims and Islam in South Asia, because there was a time up till really the 60s that Pakistan thought that it was the protector of all Muslims in South Asia, and would make very clear pronouncements on the status of Muslims in India and elsewhere in South Asia. But since the emergence of Bangladesh, that has gone down dramatically. But it still feels that the world around it is threatening it, and you can clearly see that we don't have good relations with obviously India, but also Afghanistan and Iran. And that does affect Pakistan pretty badly, because it sees that it's in the interest of these 3 countries that Pakistan should not become stable. So yes, the threatened idea still remains.
Okay. Professor Nayyar, does the assertion of different dimensions of identity, as Ms. Noorani said, necessarily conflict or weaken Pakistan's identity or a Pakistani identity?
Well, it should not. It should be, the diversity should be, one should enjoy diversity. One should celebrate diversity. It should not. But then there are people who think that uniformity is more important, and that there should be a kind of identity which is uniformly applied to all the people living in a particular geographical boundary, and one should therefore shun the other identities. And this is something which is not happening in Pakistan now, or in the recent past. Even the poet Iqbal, who Pakistan regards as the national poet, had made such statements that you should not identify yourself as being Sindhi or Punjabi or Sayyid or etc., etc. You should be, Musliman. This is the kind of thing. I think that tendency continues to persist.
But why? What is behind that thinking?
Oh, I think somehow there is this insecurity, and they think that diversity could lead to dispersal of interests and dispersal of people, and they think that a unity would ensure existence as well as continuity, and as something which you can sit down with them and argue and tell that this is something which is not good. They may agree with you, but when they manage the state, they have that particular thing taken as a very sacrosanct principle that they keep with them and follow.
Okay, all right. We need to take a break at this point. We'll be back again with this interesting discussion in a bit. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're discussing changes taking place in Pakistani society. How does the state in Pakistan view minorities?
The state in Pakistan, of Pakistan views somehow has built in inequality for minorities, religious minorities. Of course, they have given them right. They have given them right in terms of separate electorate. In fact, I think religious minorities in Pakistan have 2 votes, one on separate seats and one for joint seats. So they have 2 votes. In that sense, I mean, they are not discriminated that badly. But then otherwise also, they are discriminated. They have, they face these harsh laws. They face an education system that treats them very badly. They know that they are second-rate citizens, that they are being hounded by a population which is becoming increasingly frenzy on religious issues, and the state is not doing enough to protect them. They feel very unsafe in Pakistan. I think that is the reality at the moment.
Therefore, is it not better that Pakistani citizenship is more secular in nature, it's citizenship based, where minorities don't feel threatened, they're equal citizens like everybody else, and the state should also ensure that?
Of course, this is our demand. Many Pakistanis, today I think, I feel that the demand for a secular Pakistan becomes even more urgent and much stronger.
How practical is it, Bharat?
It is practical, because even though at one level we have this influx of a lot of religious onslaught on us, but the other time then there's a reaction to it, where people have realized that when the state adopted religion, particularly during Zia-ul-Haq's time, when it became the business of the state, religion, people realize that it has not done any good to them. It has just brought in more harm, more bloodshed, more division, and now we are fighting sectarian wars. We are fighting class, there are divisions even within the Ummah about who's a better Muslim. So when the influx of the Salafi Islam came into Pakistan during Zia's time, that was forced on us. Previously, when the Muslims of the subcontinent, particularly those who migrated from India, were more of the Barelvi sect, which was considered a more liberal sect and more diverse.
We're going to discuss subcontinental Islam in a bit, but let me just permit me to change the subject a bit and go to Yaqoob. Yaqoob, let's talk about education. Are Pakistanis waking up to the fact that they need to invest more in human resource development than in security resources? Now, last time I was in Pakistan, I heard a lot of people say this, saying that, we invested in guns and look where it has landed us. And when I asked them what would they like to bequeath to their children, 9 out of 10 people said good education. And Pakistan, I find from an Australian report of 2 years ago, that is the highest per capita investor in higher education. Now, so what is happening in the education sector? Does that explain the boom in schools, colleges, private universities of all kinds? I'm not saying they're all of good quality, but there is an education boom in Pakistan that one can see.
Oh yes, of course. One of the very good things that happened under Musharraf was that he changed the old University Grants Commission into what is now called the Higher Education Commission, and it was led by very dynamic people who were very respected in their fields, and they invested a lot of money, billions actually, in higher education, which meant that now we have very good universities, we have got excellent faculty in a lot of them. Millions of people are actually now in higher education. So that is a good thing. The problem, of course, with that was twofold. Yes, people did realize that higher education and education in itself is a good thing. But in this great expansion, which happened really quickly within a decade, there wasn't too much focus in terms of quality. So that was one drawback. The second was there wasn't that much investment in schools. So you would have places which would have a university, which would have like 2 or 3 high schools. So where are these people going to actually come from who are going to attend the universities? But with devolution, I've at least seen in the province of Punjab a great investment in terms of schools, a great investment also in terms of higher education. So it might not be as much as India, the awakening to that extent, because of course we still have a bit of feudalism in Pakistan, and in provinces like Sindh and Balochistan it's very much there. But there is a general awakening that education, at least of some kind, good education perhaps might not be the goal as yet, but education of some kind is very key.
Mr. Nayyar, Yaqoob talked of quality of education. So it's one thing to have large number of schools, colleges and universities, and quite another to have quality education, education that is liberal, that is inclusive, that is tolerant, that is open to the rest of the world. Now you conducted a huge study on school textbooks, if I remember correctly. What were your findings? What is the quality of education in Pakistani schools? Because they are the people who will feed people into colleges and to universities.
Well, that was 10 years ago, and in fact 15 years ago. I think the situation has worsened since then.
Worsened?
Worsened in the sense that the quality of education in public sector has gone further down. So what has happened since then, and the scene that we have now is that there is this state sector education and there is private sector education. The state is progressively abandoning its responsibility to provide education. Although the state has also passed a legislation, Article 25A of the Constitution, an amendment in the Constitution, making education a fundamental right as well as the state responsibility from the age of 5 to 16, which means the state is the primary responsible entity to provide education. But the state depends upon the private sector to reach those targets. So even now, after 3 years of passing that act, the state is not in a position to provide education to all the children. And the public schools have gone down in quality, are going down progressively in quality. Private sector schools, of which the elite schools are fewer in number and the low fee private schools are very large in number, are increasing again. The low level private schools are roughly as bad as public schools, but people still prefer them to public schools.
But wherever the state has moved away or is unable to provide education, are madrasas moving in?
Madrasas are actually not quite moving in. Madrasas are essentially increasing at a particular pace, and that dynamics is a little more complicated than simply because this is not available and therefore this is available. And there are many parents who are quite well off and send the children to madrasas. There are many parents who are so destitute that if the children go and live in madrasas and spend, have taking care of their dress and eating and sleeping and everything over there and also studies, they are very happy. So madrasas are growing because of that and because of the vacuum that the state has created in the education system.
Mr. Noorani, what's happening to the education of the girl child? Do young girls go to school? Are they encouraged to go to school? Do parents send them to school?
Actually, it depends from province to province. Like he pointed out, I think in Punjab, the government is taking education more seriously. They are spending money on building public schools. But in Sindh, I think the situation where I come from, situation is very, very bleak. And girls up to maybe the lower primary level, you might see a lot of girls being sent to school. But the moment they reach 10 years of puberty years, they are taken out of school. And the dropout rate increases. The madrasas, however, do have a lot of girls going in for depends on which part of Pakistan the person belongs to, because like in the frontier province, there's a lot of education, or that people prefer that girls should be just their education should be limited to learning of the Quran and understanding that, and so they may send them to a teacher to just educate them on that level. So primary level, yes, maybe there's some level of girls attending school, but the dropout rate is very high.
But how does it vary between the majority community and minority community? The reason I ask you this is because I was in Pakistan, I had a Christian driver. He got friendly with me and he said, I wish I was born a Christian in India. So I was shocked. I said, why? He said, my children would have gone to missionary schools, they're the best schools. They would have gone to missionary colleges and they would have probably be studying abroad. He says, nothing like that is possible here. Was he representative of what Christians feel?
If you're talking about the minority, yes, the minority community, like initially the missionary schools were there that we had inherited because after partition, and a lot of the Christian community was attending these missionary schools, but then after nationalization things changed. And so that preference for Christian people who were from that community was taken away from them. And the state, I would say, of minorities has deteriorated. A lot of them have, because of these reasons, there's a large number that has left the country, and there's a lot of disparity. First of all, being poor is, you know, you're sort of deprived because of that, and being a minority deprives you even further.
Okay, we're going to discuss this further, but we need to take a break at this point. We'll be back again with this interesting discussion in a bit. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're discussing changes taking place within Pakistani society. Ms. Noorani, do you think that extremist violence has increased the power of right-wing organizations, political organizations in the field of culture, in the social sphere, in political sphere, in the economic sphere, and even in the judicial sphere?
I definitely think there has been an increase, and previously whenever we had elections, the religious parties never ever came into power. But Musharraf changed all that. When we had those engineered elections, and then we had the MMA government being formed in the KPK, I think that was the first time they tasted power, and now they're not going to give it up that easily. And by them coming into power did create a lot of shift towards the radicalization of Pakistani society, religion creeping in even more forcefully. On the one hand, Musharraf was can be sort of projected as a liberal general, but on the other hand, we had all these things going on, you know. And so when when we had the elected government coming in, things were at a very bad, we were facing very difficult times.
You're saying their power has gone up?
Yeah, yes, they have gone up in the sense that now they have permitted those places where they had not been before. So the curriculum, I think, is one area that was during Zia's time, that Nayyar Sahib has mentioned earlier, that has changed, and the mindset has now changed a lot, because over the period of time that when things did not change. So we are producing educated people maybe, but not the quality of education has gone down.
Yaqoob, do you think Islam itself has changed in Pakistan? Like Sufi culture was part of subcontinental Islam, which was extremely tolerant. The subcontinental Islam itself was very different. It has large doses of Persian culture. Do you think Persian culture in Pakistani Islam is on retreat, and is it getting Arabized?
Oh, of course. There's this excellent book by Professor Jamal Malik called Islam in South Asia, and if you read that, it seems as if you're reading like a fairy tale, because it speaks about Islam that is non-existent in Pakistan now. But this thing, I think, began much earlier, because even if you read Iqbal's very famous speech at the 1930s session of the All India Muslim League, he actually talks about Arab imperialism. So even in 1930, Iqbal is identifying this Arabic stamp that is coming in through Pakistan on the Muslims of South Asia, and that has, of course, dramatically increased. The places where there'd be Sufi festivals, Sufi shrines would be the center of attention, and all these things would happen. That space has dramatically shrunk now.
Professor Nayyar, what has this done to Pakistani art, music, theatre, and public performances in general, the Arabization of Islam?
You know, although there was this period when all of these things were affected, in the sense that theatre had disappeared, films had disappeared, and other art forms were also curbed. There was a time, but then there has been a resurgence of that. This is a strange phenomenon, and I think this has much to do with the oppression that one feels around. That art form usually comes up, and that sort of this happened in Iran also. You know, when there was too much of this oppression, this excellent art form appeared.
So do you ascribe the rise of groups like Lal and Junoon and others like them to this resurgence that is taking place?
Music and art, in dance and in plays, all of that. I think I see a resurgence in Pakistani art.
I think Musharraf did contribute a bit towards the cultural aspect, where we did see a lot of music. His daughter was very engaged in promoting classical music. So there was this space that we got during his period,
but
yes.
What I wanted to ask you also was, how has this Islamic extremism affected women in the public space in Pakistan?
They are trying to assert themselves. I think Pakistan is a society of contradictions, you know, like we were discussing yesterday, that on the one hand you have this very modern Pakistani woman, and on the other hand you have this woman, even she may be from the urban class, who is now portraying herself as her Muslim identity, the Arab identity of wearing a scarf. That has emerged on the one hand. At the same time you see a lot of this move towards Western modernization, and I think that is where the contradictions are coming even more. We need to come to where we have a society that sort of grows on its own rather than being influenced by Western influence or by Arabization. We need to emerge as a Pakistani woman, and I think we are going through that phase right now.
Okay, my last question, because we're running out of time. Yaqoob, do you see civil society fighting against extremism, and how effective is that fight? What is the size of civil society which is fighting extremists? Is it substantial?
It is substantial, but I think the point that we need to remember is that extremists are not a big number, but they have guns and they have the public space to affect themselves. I'll give you a very small example. We all have gatherings of, you know, people who are liberals or seculars or whatever, but most of them happen behind closed doors and in grave security. But you can have Hafiz Saeed having a rally on the Mall Road in Lahore. And that is the space they have. They might have 5,000 people there, but they have more power than 5 million people in the civil society. So unless we take back that space, which of course we would have to do by fighting or some other way, radicalization is not going to come to an end. So they are a small number, but they are a very small and significant number. And civil society will have to go to great lengths. But initially, I also think they'll have to strengthen themselves. At the moment, civil society is divided against itself. So there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done before radicalization can be countered.
All right, we've run out of time. I would like to thank all of you, Professor Abdul Hamid Nayyar, Ms. Uzma Noorani, Professor Yaqoob Bangash, for coming to this program and discussing this complicated subject, and I hope our understanding of India will improve because of this. That's all we have for you today. We'll be back again next week as usual. Till then, goodbye and thanks for watching India's World.